don't have enough money to be able to do the things you want to do in retirement, you're going to have to look for income sources from elsewhere. So if there's no other way of generating income, then returning to the workplace or staying in the workplace longer than you originally intended seems inevitable.
We're here today in the Interactive Investor offices to hear about their Great British Retirement Survey. I'm joined by Craig, Head of Personal Finance, and he's here to talk through the findings of the report. Was there anything that surprised you maybe, or anything that you looked at and worried you slightly?
One of the main ones was the impact, or has been the impact of the cost of living crisis on people's finances over the past couple of years. We know that inflation has eased significantly from the dizzying double-digit heights that we saw a few years ago. But the impact of higher costs is still being felt by age groups across the board, from those who are trying to accumulate retirement wealth all the way through to those who are trying to use their accumulated wealth to support their lifestyle in old age. Of particular concern was rising unsecured debt among those that are already retired. And it seems like in many cases they're taking on debt to meet rising costs. Some ways you hope that those challenges are transient and things correct themselves when the rising cost of living finally eases back to a level that's more manageable. But it is both those things are a clear concern.
How about for those that are, the Gen Z, those that maybe see retirement as something well, into the future, well over the horizon, but perhaps maybe do need to think about it sooner?
There's quite a few things that they need to be thinking about when planning their future. Retirement is one of them. Naturally, in some cases, it will fall down the pecking order with more immediate financial goals taking priority. And you can kind of understand that. It's very difficult to picture, how you want to spend your retirement, the things that you want to do, and how much money you would need to do that when it's 4 decades away. Investing and saving for your retirement as early as you can make a huge difference to the eventual lifestyle that you're able to live and the amount of savings that you're able to accrue. If you start saving when you're very, very young, you have more time not only to tuck money away, but also more time to benefit from the power of compound returns, which has the greatest effect over longer periods. Again, the cost of living is having an impact, the cost of renting, the cost of buying a home. The challenge for that generation is to work out how to prioritise their finances, to focus on those that are the most important, but at the same time not neglect those that are the furthest away, which is retirement.
If we were to be pessimistic and say it doesn't correct itself, what is that going to mean for those people who are in retirement and those that are younger that are going to be, coming to retirement in later years? The
main outcome of that will be that people will end up working for longer. For some people, it can add a nice bit of variety in retirement. They can enable to keep working connections. They can keep themselves active, maybe physically and cognitively as well. The key thing around that is choice. People should be working for longer because they want to, not because they have to. I guess the other side to that is our health, whether it is physical or cognitive. They're two things we often can't control. And there are certain professions where the demands physically are severe that they might not be able to continue working. If you don't have enough money to be able to do the things you want to do in retirement, then inevitably you're going to have to look for income sources from elsewhere. So if there's no other way of generating income, then returning to the workplace or staying in the workplace longer than you originally intended seems inevitable.
We had the FCA's retirement income data come out. From it, we can see that significantly more people have accessed their pension pots, which presumably is to do with the sort of changes that are coming in with IHT. What are your thoughts on that? Is that something that you expected? And based on what we've seen as well in the findings in your report, some proportion have said that they're not going to make any changes. But perhaps how can people cut through the noise of what they sometimes see in the headlines?
One of the explanations is that more people are taking their pension tax-free cash. Because if you're taking your pension tax-free cash, you need to do something with the rest of the pot, whether that's put it into drawdown or buy an annuity. And I guess for those people who just want to take the tax-free amount at this moment in time, in fear that the maximum might be slashed or scrapped later this year, then it's natural that they will probably not want to take any income at this time and keep the money invested and move it into drawdown. There's been a lot on tax-free cash. We did our own research on it recently, and we found out that from August last year to August this year, if you compare the months, then we saw a similar uptick in tax-free cash withdrawals. So it's clear that savers are spooked by it. I guess you can understand it, especially after the sweeping changes to the tax system, including the decision to bring pensions into the scope of IHT, which again will be another driver of people looking to access their money from their pensions earlier than perhaps they would have done otherwise, and either spend the money or gift it. You know, taking your tax-free cash in one hit isn't always the best thing to do. And what we're facing at the moment is purely speculation. We don't know whether things are going to change. And there's been lots of speculation about tax-free cash. We had it last year in the lead up to the previous autumn budget. Ultimately it didn't happen. The fears are there this time around, and you just hope people are doing it for the right reasons. We've
obviously heard this £50 billion black hole that Rachel Reeves needs to plug. There's obviously a lot of talk of where she's going to look for that money. You know, raising taxes is going to be inevitable. Where do you see that happening? Sort of, there's been obviously rumours about a mansion house tax, you know, looking at it from a property side. But where do you think ultimately she's going to be trying to get that money from?
You always worry that pensions are a soft target because of the generous tax advantages that they offer. That's the reason why people use pensions. And if you gradually chip away and erode the tax perks of pensions, then it could really disincentivise savers at a time when we really need to encourage and foster more engagement. I mean, I personally hope that the government leaves the pension tax system alone, not just at this budget, but in some of the near-term future ones as well. I mean, we appreciate that the landscape can't stay the same forever. Inheritance tax, given the sweeping changes last year, it's clearly an area that the government is looking at. I guess, like you say, it will be dictated by the country's fiscal position, and if she does need to turn to the tax system to get some extra money, then there are a few options available. That said, there are less or fewer levers to pull after the multi-billion hikes last year. So, we will have to wait and see.
So it almost feels like that it's a contradiction between what the government are doing and what the regulator is trying to do, especially with trying to roll out targeted support. You know, they're trying to get more people to invest and to be engaged with their finances and sort of offer more support in order for them to do that. But it seems to be in contrast to what the government are almost doing, which is disincentivising people to invest and to save. How do you feel about that, being in the industry and sort of seeing it from the customers that you have?
There's a real risk that we could be facing a looming retirement crisis. Lots and lots of people reaching their golden years with insufficient funds to live the lifestyles that they want. And in some cases, they may be struggling to make ends meet. We know the state pension age is under review. We should get the outcomes of that in a couple of years' time. There's a lot of fear, particularly among younger people, that the state pension might not exist. That I don't think that is particularly helpful either. Some consistency around the messaging of how people should approach saving for retirement, and some consistency around the rules as well, will certainly make things easier for people to save, and they'll be more encouraged to do so.
What do you think the underlying message is from sort of the stats that you guys have uncovered from this report?
We could be, hurtling towards quite a severe retirement crisis. The shift from defined benefit schemes to defined contributions that has occurred over the past couple of decades means that people need to play a more engaged role in their savings. They need to pay more attention to what they're paying in. They need to pay more attention to what they're investing in. These things need to be addressed. We can make pensions easier to engage with if we can make them easier to understand, and I guess providers such as Interactive Investor have a role to play. It's not just on the government, sort of everyone who's in the value chain, if you like, to play a role in helping people do it. There are challenges, but they need to be addressed as soon as possible to avoid people reaching retirement with less wealth than they need to live comfortably.
Great, thank you so much, Craig.
Thanks a lot.